babes, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Brandy. I am the host of the Be Real Babe show, a spinoff of the Be Real Babe podcast. And if you're watching this live and it is Wednesday, that means it is internet insanity today. And I have got a huge story for you today, which has all over the internet, all over TikTok, all over Instagram, and it stemmed from the Netflix documentary, The Unknown Number, The High School Catfish. Now, some of you have maybe watched it, maybe you haven't, maybe you've seen memes, maybe you don't even know what the heck I'm talking about, but today I'm going to go over some things that were missed in the Netflix documentary, a little bit of backstory, obviously my opinions and everyone else's opinions that's going around, and just some kind of truth to the delay of the launch of this episode and what's kind of happened in the last little bit. So if you're interested in listening to that, stick around and we'll jump right in. Alright guys, so I, complete honesty, had this huge plan of doing an episode speaking about the two different Kendras that were trending on social media. One story was through the Netflix documentary that's obviously blown up on social media, and the other one actually stemmed from social media. So I went to go tape it last week. It was Monday, I believe it was. Yeah, it was Monday. And so I had all my notes and I was ready to go on Monday to record. Keeping Up with Canada happened on the Monday. That was all good. I went to record on the Monday night, and just before I hit record, I had fallen down a Reddit kind of rabbit hole talking about this situation, the second story that I was going to cover that I'm going to cover next week. And there was just a lot of mixed emotions about the situation and speaking about it online. So that kind of stressed me out. And then I went into recording, and because I was trying to cover both stories, I was just kind of information overloaded, and it just came out really, really wrong. And I just didn't love it when I went to edit it. So I was like, that's fine. We still have Tuesday. We can re-record and then we'll launch it for Wednesday. So went to work, and that was the plan. I was going to come home Tuesday, and I was going to re-record it. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just cover one, cover the next one. I was going with that game plan all day, just getting into the mentality of this first story we're covering here. And then, unfortunately, like thousands of others of you, I had opened my Instagram to unfortunately seeing the murder of Charlie Kirk. And I'm not going to do this episode about that because, to be quite honest, you guys, have been crying for days about it. I've just been so distraught about it that I absolutely could not focus when I got home. Re-recording it, it felt so out of place at the moment. I had a lot of personal things that kind of came up through these last couple of days of those that I had lost in the past, and there was just a lot of emotions going on, and I couldn't sit down and talk about it. I couldn't sit down and talk about like why I couldn't record because I was just extremely emotional. Doesn't matter to me what your politics are, anything like that. He's someone that I looked up to, and in the coming weeks, I definitely want to speak on this a little bit more. But for right now, there's enough content out there, and just prayers and thoughts to anybody affected. For myself, like I said, that was very much something that affected me, not only because just watching someone lose their life, I don't think in such a horrific way. I don't really think most of us even know how to process, and still obviously going through that right now. For those that don't know, in my early 20s, I lost 3 of my friends back to back to back, all 3 in very tragic ways, and they were very life-changing for me. So that even though those over a decade, that really brought some things up. And then just someone that's a content creator that speaks out about politics in Canada and all that kind of stuff. And it just made me very nervous. And as someone that has just come closer to God and learning my relationship with God and all of those things, it was just, a rough couple of days. So luckily, I've been able to move past it, just as most, because at the end of the day, I am very far from being close to him as a parasocial relationship. I understand that, there's people far more closer that are going through so much more pain. And, but like I said, it brought up some personal stuff for me. So to sit down and record any of these just kind of felt just not at the time. And honestly, I still am looking like obviously shit. And then I sat back and watched the last video, and I was moving my hands around in the mic. So I'm going to try not to do that. Trying to learn my lesson. So there's what happened last week. So this will be airing this coming Wednesday. Monday, I'm going to have another Keeping Up with Canada. So this is just delayed. So thank you guys if you've been listening, if you understand. And again, prayers out to everybody that was affected by this, whether you're close to him, whether or not you liked him or not. If you've seen the video, you know. If you don't, do not go and look it up. It definitely has been playing on loop in my head, and I just don't wish that kind of for anybody to see any of those kind of things. That's why I personally only watch Disney and Superstore on repeat on TV. But anyways, you guys, so that's what happened. So, and it was just funny. Everything always happens for a reason, right? So I wasn't super happy with the original production, and then I was just like going to race it, and then it didn't end up working. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, it's not the end of the world if you don't publish it. So again, thank you guys if you're tuning in. I know I've had a huge break off this, and I plan to go forward with bringing you guys new episodes every week. Like I said, next week is going to be about a different Kendra, and I have a whole idea of how I want to not frame that one, but set that one up, because I was very nervous, like I said, the first time. So this episode is all going to be, like I said, about the Netflix documentary. Now, some of you have probably already watched it and you know everything. So some of this stuff and the way I'm going to speak about it might be super annoying to you. If you haven't and you do have Netflix, I do suggest pausing this video, going to watch it, because there's going to be spoilers in this, and then coming back, because I think everybody should watch it the way that me and my spouse watched it, because we watched it live having no idea who the person was. And now that it's obviously been out, there's been memes, there has been reactions and commentary channels talking about it. So obviously most people that maybe haven't watched it might already know. But if you're someone that has no idea what's going on or what I'm talking about, don't really care about watching the Netflix documentary, rather just watch this or watch this and then go over there, that's all good. Stick around, but just spoiler alert now, it is absolutely okay if you want to watch the Netflix documentary or already watch this and you don't even care about it. It's all good. Just join me in the next week, because I've got another one with a very interesting person named Kendra. But this one, let's specifically talk about this Netflix documentary, some of the things that maybe were missed in it, because I mean, they only have a certain amount of time, and also just some opinions that were out there since this documentary came out. So again, as mentioned, it's called The Unknown Number, the High School Catfish. So where does this take place? This takes place in Beale City, Michigan, which is a small rural community located in Isabel County, which apparently is the northern part of that county. When I went and looked at it on the map, it looks like it's about central Michigan, which for Canadians, that is right close to the Canadian border. So you've kind of got Ontario here, you know, and then you've got I'm sorry, I didn't look up the body of water that was there, and then Michigan. So it kind of like, you know, touches over here in Toronto, Ontario, where there's like Niagara over here, and then Beale City's kind of in the middle there. Very, very small town. I am from a small town, what I would consider a small town, not compared to this small town. My small town is about 18,000 people. Beale City in the year 2000 was around 345 people, 124 households, 91 families residing there. But in 2020, the CDP said that there's 332. So when I claim I'm from a small city, bitch don't know what she's talking about. This is a small city. So coming from a small town, I can tell you everyone knows their business. And this was my city was way bigger than this one. So I can imagine people are in their business. People are knowing things. People are talking all the time. And in this day and age, everyone's on their phone. That is something they highlighted in the Netflix documentary. Although I think that's just everywhere. I don't think it matters if you're from a big city or a little city. I think you're always going to have people on their phones all the time. I think that's just this generation. But again, coming from a small town, everyone knows everyone. Things, you know, gossip happens, tea happens. Like sometimes what else do you do? And honestly, sometimes I'd rather have tea than like, you know, a bunch of crazy crime. You know, if that's the worst thing that's going on in a town. However, there was a crime that happened this one. I'm not downplaying it. I'm not saying small towns don't, but you know, sometimes if the worst is that there's gossip in the city and that's the worst that your city has, I think that's a blessed city. So this particular story involves a bunch of different families, but there's two families in particular that this story is about, the Lakaris and the McKennies. So let's start with the first family. So that would be the head of the family, Kendra and Sean Lakari, mom and dad, for their only daughter, Lauren. Lauren is half of the main subject of this case, of this documentary. Let's just go to knowing a little bit more in the background. I think that's one thing. Again, you can only fit so much in the documentary, right? But let's go into a little bit of their backgrounds. So Kendra was born in August 1980 in the Detroit area, about 2 hours away from Beale City. So making her currently 45 at this moment. So all of this happened in 2021. So she would have been in her earlier 40s. She worked for the IT department at Ferris State University and was Lauren's basketball coach. She was a very involved mother and in all the games and sports, and participated with all the events in Lauren's life. From the outside, it sounds like they had a great life. Sean was a longtime mechanic. He worked at a local auto body shop, but he was born and raised in Beale City. Kendra and Sean met at Central Michigan University. Obviously, they married there. I could not find the exact time that they got married, but they moved back to Sean's hometown, obviously at Beale City. And then they had Lauren in 2007. So I would say anywhere from the early 2000s to 2007 when Lauren was born. This must have been when they got married because they were married before they had their daughter. And I guess, being again from a small town, I totally understand that that would be then someone from the outside going in. So she wasn't as tight knit with the rest of these people in this group. But in the documentary, her cousin, I believe it was on there, said that she used to be the life of the party and she was just always out there, just always about the attention and just kind of having that what would look like a party girl, not party girl, but always out there going on stage. She seemed like she was just always having fun from what the documentary showed us and the comments. But when she moved to Beale City, obviously from, I don't know how big Detroit is, but I'm assuming it's way bigger, obviously, than Beale City. So I'm sure that was quite a change from going from a big city to a small city and not being as close knit, because most of the people, again, same with my hometown, they're born and raised there. They went to high school together. There's going to be a lot of couples that are high school sweethearts that have put their roots and their whole families there, right? So sometimes I can understand feeling like an outsider. Not that really means anything, but just, I get it. Small towns are different. So Kendra also gained the reputation after she had her kid and all that kind of stuff as being the cool mom. She was always with Lauren and her friends, and they would attend games. And again, like we said, we've heard people were gossiping, right? There's always gossip going around. That's just small town type situations. And I imagine as you have kids, that kind of transpires to their lives from your lives probably, and what's going on with that. Let's skip to the other side of the aisle. Now, what was the other side of the aisle? Jill and Dave McKinney, and they were the parents of Owen McKinney. So Jill and Dave were born and raised long-term residents of Beale City. I believe they would have been around the same age as the Careys, but that I couldn't find that information anywhere. That's just my assumption. They have two children, Owen and his younger sister, Macy, which she was not in the documentary. I imagine because she was quite younger when this happened. Maybe she is still young. I'm not sure. But Dave was an IT manager while Jill was a super volunteer at a children's Catholic elementary school. Both were also heavily involved in their child's lives because, as most kids are, and involved in sports. And that's what sounds like Lauren and Owen were both very similar that way, where they were into a lot of different sports. So that was a huge thing that they had in common. So Owen and Lauren went to a Beale City school. It was from K to 12 from my understanding, and they started dating in grade 7. So we know the parents now, married couple here. Doesn't seem like there seems to be any issues on either side, right? Parents seem like they're somewhat normal. They're friends. They spend all their time, as their kids get together, these two families are getting closer. It's in the pandemic, so they're in each other's pandemic bubble. Their sports, their school events, they're all doing things together. They're becoming super close. Like I said, they went to different events together. Both kids were very athletic, and the couple was referred to as the golden couple. So obviously they've been together. There's obviously some energy around there. I don't know, wasn't there, but from what I've read, what I've seen online in other videos is that they were, just a really happy couple and obviously supporting each other and both really goal-oriented and sports-like people. Now, there's been different things online that I found. Some are saying that Lauren was really quiet. She kept to herself and she didn't really get along with people not get along with, but, just really wasn't involved in the girls her age. And then on the other side, I read that she was super popular and was into all this kind of stuff, and her mom pushed her to be popular and to get involved in the community and that kind of stuff. So I have no idea. Wasn't there. There's two coins all the time. You never know. Take that as your opinion. Go watch the Netflix documentary. Comment below of which one you think is true. But either way, what are we talking about? If you don't know, if you know, you know. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of what happens here. So in October 2020, so this would have been, I believe, they're 13 years old in the 8th grade. So it was about a year after, from my understanding, I could get this wrong, but about a year after they started dating in the 8th grade. They're 13 years old. October 2020, there was a Halloween party that was being held by one of Owen's friends, Chloe, and her parents, the Wilsons. They make an appearance in the documentary. There's a lot of mixed opinions online about them. You guys go on there and look for yourselves. But there's this, again, two different sides to this story here. One side saying that this was an open invitation. This was an open Halloween party. It's not that people were specifically invited. People were just free to go. And then there's another side where it says that she wasn't invited to go. Now, doing further digging into this, I found out that allegedly Tammy Wilson, Chloe's mom, had called and told Kendra that absolutely Lauren was invited to this party, but it sounds like perhaps that message didn't get onto her. I don't know if that's true or not, if that was withheld, or if she did it and she's just saying it to save face. I have no idea, wasn't there. Those are just a couple of things I found online. So one instance, people are saying she wasn't invited, and they're like, well, because it's not an invite thing, you just show up. And then they're saying, like, even on top of that, we did call and let her know, but again, we weren't there. This is just online speculation. But either way, that's for everyone to decide. But it sounded like perhaps that it just wasn't the vibe, because allegedly maybe Chloe had a little thing for Owen, and so that immediately kind of made Lauren and Chloe maybe not enemies, but not friends, right? Maybe just tolerate each other as they're in a small school, small town, but you don't have to be best friends with everyone, which I totally get it. But 2 weeks before the Halloween party happened, an unknown number had sent a text, and the text read, "Hey Lauren, Owen is breaking up with you. He no longer likes you and hasn't liked you for a while. It's obvious he likes me. He laughs, smiles, touches my hair. Not sure what he told you, but he's coming to the Halloween party and we're both down to fuck. You're a sweet girl, but I can give him what he wants. Sorry, not sorry." So there's a couple other things floating. I'm going to read another one that was an example, and I don't know when these all came in at different times, but this one reads, "If he didn't tell you yet, I will. Blank was initially going to be invited to the Halloween party. That changed because Blank needs a ride and asks that Blank gets invited. That way he could go from their football game with Blank and come to the Halloween party and then spend the night at Blank's house after they are planning to sneak out and meet with us after. Blank said no to coming, then Blank wouldn't be able to come. You are not being invited because we want this time together. He is coming to my house on Halloween too and is giving me his sweatshirt to wear. You're a sweet girl, and I know I can give him what he wants. Sorry, not sorry." So there's a couple different versions out there. Either way, this unknown number is pretty much saying, like, hey, you're nothing. He likes me. Those are pretty big allegations, especially when you're that age, right? Like, that's pretty harsh as a 13-year-old. I mean, you've been together for a year, things are good, but like, how out of left field, right? There didn't seem to be any beef with anybody. So it was just very confusing where these messages were coming from. But they decided not to go to the Halloween party under the impression that Lauren wasn't invited and Owen wanted to stay with her. So they didn't end up going. But after the Halloween party, the text messages died. They continued on in their lives, went through school, went through summer, come back to school 11 months later. They got much worse. The text messages came back and they came much more vulgar. So they started again in September 2021. "One of you got voted on homecoming court. This is epic. Friday will be epic when it's announced. The look on your faces watching one of you with your arm around another person, holding hands and being all adorable, smiling, flirting, and posing couldn't be the end of this AKA golden couple with the relations everyone idolizes. We promise you will break up. You know he's cheating. Plan in action. It will for sure break both of you up. No more golden couple. He hates you. Sucks to suck. He ain't talking to you. Sorry. He's talking to us. How does it feel to lose? F you. We just won. He met us after." Just, again, nonstop continual conversations about how he doesn't like her. He hates her. She's a nobody. This person's hooking up with, or they, I don't know, they keep saying we, so either this person or these people, they really framed things to be, we, this, like, it didn't seem like it was one person. It really made it seem like it was a group of girls, with one person obviously leading. That was obviously the one hooking up with Owen. They obviously hadn't hooked up yet. They're very young at this age, 14 years old, when these messages must have came back, or turning 14, right around that age. So obviously they hadn't gotten hooked up yet. It's disgusting to talk about their teenagers. But obviously this person used that to their advantage in this stalking, and we're just very, he wants to hook up, but he's not going to hook up with you. He's hooking up with me, and he doesn't ever want to be with you, and he wants blowjobs, and that's like super fucking inappropriate stuff. Now, like, listen, I was 13 and 14-year-old as well, and I'm not saying that I didn't do things and whatever, but that's very vulgar messaging at that age, and I feel like that's such a small town, and maybe now with social media and all that stuff, but like at my age, that was that's very vulgar things to say. I know the internet has taken children's innocence away, but really think about when you were 13, 14 years old. Of course, you kind of heard about those things, but like for it to be this aggressive, absolutely insane. She was receiving upward to 50 messages a day of nonstop harassment, hating on everything about her, from her looks to her relationship to her smarts, her academia, her athleticism. She obviously tried to call back. They wouldn't answer. They make fun of her for even trying. They would call her Low, which was a personal friend name. So they really were starting to push her to mass anxiety and paranoia. And, obviously they had compared messages. So they knew that this person, obviously, like, things weren't happening and they were getting harassed and all of that. But it doesn't matter. At that age, nonstop, all the time, that's got to be so, so much. So after they got together and they were talking to friends, they're poking and prodding, asking everywhere. At this point, I think they just, from my understanding, obviously it was too much, so they wanted to take it to their parents. So they took it to their parents around, I believe the timeline is December 2021. I could be wrong, guys. There's so much information that's hard to decipher sometimes. So they took it to their parents in December 2021, and then they immediately went to the school, because obviously they're thinking this has got to be someone at school, right? Because that makes sense. It's obviously not going to be an older person. It's going to be someone that's probably obsessed with Owen and just jealous and all that kind of stuff, right? That makes sense as a baseline. So they take it to the school. This principal and superintendent, they've never seen anything like this. They've never seen anything more vulgar before. There's obviously been forms of cyberbullying and bullying, but not to this level. Like, this is stalker level 1000, like final boss stalking 1000. So as this is going on, Kendra and Jill, the moms, are talking about it in depth. They're printing off messages. They're going through the situation. The kids are asking people around them. They're asking parents, like, talk to your kids about it. Does anybody know what's going on here? But nothing came up. So they tried to, even when Lauren would get messages, the principal would be watching the cameras to see, was anybody reacting? Was anybody on their phones? Led to nothing. So they then tried to block, and not necessarily this timeline, but then they were blocking the number. Unfortunately, the person or people that were doing this had a random number generator application, so it doesn't matter if they blocked the numbers, they would just come through with a different number. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, why don't you just get the kids a new number and this would stop? Well, the argument to that is if they blocked the number, then there was no way to find out who did this, and this was extremely disturbing, and they wanted to figure out who it was before taking that next step, because obviously this person or these people are deranged, and if they're doing this to 14-year-olds, and even if it is a 14-year-old, they want to get to the bottom of that. So I understand that logic as well, because maybe once you cut that off, it's like, well, then what? Until you catch this person or no, are you always going to feel unsure, right? Remember, these kids had been going through it for a little bit, took a whole pause, and then they went about September to December, it sounds like, from when they said anything, especially January when they brought it to the school. So that was a good 5 months of this continual harassment where, they didn't have any answers, where they were continually harassed. So while they're trying to figure this out amongst each other and some friends, she started questioning their relationship. Obviously, like, that's got to be super stressful. Like, why is this person so obsessed? And especially at that age, you're not thinking, right? And I remember being super insecure, and I'm not going to speak for Lauren, but I imagine that's like nonstop, especially talking about the nonstop berating and the physical intimacy, and just the nonstop, right? Like, I imagine your brain is just consumed. Your mental health cannot be okay with these types of things. So I'm not really sure. I could be getting this timeline a little bit wrong. But I do know after some time, I think it was after 2 years, they broke up, I believe, if that's the timeline, because they just thought, well, if this person just wants us to break up, maybe if we just break up, this will end. And obviously it got super stressful, her constantly questioning stuff, him constantly defending himself. They're not finding answers. Maybe they just part their ways. So sadly they ended their relationship, but even more sadly after that, things just got absolutely worse. So these messages were telling Lauren to end her life. The world would be so much better if she wasn't here, that Owen wants her dead. They would mark up photos and say, like, we won and all this kind of stuff. You should now take yourself out. They would be sending messages to Owen saying, just tell her to end her life. You'd be so much better without her. Just absolutely vile shit. Like, there was already disgusting sexual messages, and then the violent messages came in, and the physical harm implications and threats started to turn up in volume. And so about 15 months in from when this started, I believe, so in January. So it started in October 2020. We went on for a little month, a bit, took some quiet, came around to September 2021, things started happening. They escalated, and in about December, they told their parents, got the principals involved. January 2022, they got the sheriffs involved, like Maine, and then he started pulling in, asking questions, asking parents, trying to figure out who this could be, and they're going on all these rabbit chases down what's this, what that. Then messages at the same time were starting to attack her athleticism. They started getting very specific about personal details in this text messages, like how much they scored during the game and how pathetic she was. And then apparently it started actually to wear on her, and her want to be in sports, which was something huge, like was apparently starting to get apparent in her day-to-day being on the team, rightfully so. So then they started looking around to see who was competitive with her, who was on the team, and then they linked to a girl named Chloe. Now, we talked about Chloe before. That is the girl that had the Halloween party, wherever you stand on that. But either way, she allegedly had maybe a crush on Owen and really enjoyed spending time with him. They got along really well. And allegedly she had some problems in the past as being a mean girl. So it sounds like people kind of put these things together and decided like this just makes sense. She absolutely denied being anything a part of that, but as a volunteer scorekeeper as well, Kendra, I believe, was able to see the girls all on the team in the drama and look at the score, and she had noticed that the exact points that this person had mentioned was 12, and Chloe had also scored those exact points. So that pushed even more that Chloe must be the person that's doing that, even though she has denied. And again, like I said, so Chloe had a group of friends. I'm not saying Lauren didn't, but on the Netflix show, they really made it seem like Lauren didn't have a group of friends like that. And then again, these messages were really alluding like, we want this. We're never going to stop until you end your life. We're going to do this. We won, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then another really shitty thing was that when Chloe went to Florida, the messages started coming from Florida area code. So really showing that, hey, this is coming from her, even though she is saying absolutely not. So her dad was in law enforcement. He's like, hey, why don't we just get your phone dumped so that we just can prove that it's not you? So they went and did that. Proof came back. It wasn't her. But in the text messages, they alluded to, I got my phone dumped yesterday. The cops got nothing. Ha ha. Kind of thing. Again, alluding back to that it was Chloe. This text message also included pictures of Chloe in there. Again, trying to make it look like it is 100% Chloe. So everyone, all the signs are pointing to her. So when that does happen, then they start bringing, obviously, the Wilsons are defending their child. And they're like, no, this is ridiculous. There might have been problems in the past, but it wasn't her. And then they start pointing their fingers to a girl named Adriana, which is Owen's cousin. Now, one of the reasons why she did this is it sounds like perhaps that Adriana's mom had posted about having issues on a team of some sort, which with Adriana, I can't quite remember the drama there, but there was something there, and Chloe's mom or Adriana's mom was just sharing how things weren't fair and how seems like cliquey things were. So obviously there was something going on there, and the reason why they pointed fingers at Adriana is because one of the text messages that were from this unknown number was a picture from a family Christmas at Owen. So they kind of looked around and was like, okay, well, who is in your age and around this that might want to frame Chloe, right, for all of this? So that led to, for some reason, Adriana, which she's very upset. She's like, I'm just a quiet kid. Like, I don't know how this came back to me. That's absolutely not what I wanted to be a part. People were very much blaming her and saying it was her that was trying to frame Chloe and all of this. And then all of a sudden, Adriana then got text messages from the unknown number, egging her on to tell her parents how much Owen hates Lauren and how she should just, again, all these same kind of messages. So obviously then it was very obvious proof that Adriana wasn't involved in this, and now she felt like she was a target from this unknown number herself and felt very unsafe and blown away because she just didn't think that it would happen to her, obviously. So I think that was very much big proof, but for a long time, for a period of time, it sounded like there was a lot of persecution against her in school, and with everyone thinking it was her. And I can't imagine, even if Chloe, quote unquote, was a mean girl, like being blamed for something like that you didn't do to this level of like FBI stalking charges, like, come on, like that's good. That also has to suck. It doesn't matter if you're a mean girl. I don't know. That's just my honest opinion on that one. So obviously these were getting more and more heinous. They're trying to figure out who this was. And, obviously they were still getting messages for Owen, and Lauren's were obviously super intense. So things kind of turned up when Owen got a new girlfriend, and his mother were now starting to get messages. So it was just like, who the fuck are these coming from? Like, who has all these people's numbers that are so close? Who is stalking them to this point that they know Owen's new girlfriend? I believe she was even in a different city, if I remember correctly. So not just proving that it was very much all about Lauren, but there's a huge focus on Owen as well, and what seems like to be ruining his life, right? So he's having a hard time because he can't even move on from this. He goes and moves on. He's just trapped. Like, they're getting at him for everything. You're a loser. You're this. You're that. You're gonna be no one. You're shitty at ball. So obviously his mom is having a hard time because Owen's mental health is just going down the drain, and it's obviously taking him away from things that he should be concentrating on as a teenager. So in January 2022, the sheriff's office got involved, and then in April 2022, the FBI started getting involved when they weren't getting anywhere. The sheriffs weren't getting anywhere. They're just running around in different, all the way over in different places. So investigation was stalled until an FBI liaison, Bradley Peter, was brought in to assist. So Peter discovered that some of the texts were sent through an app that masked the sender's number. He obtained a search warrant for the app records, and that revealed a trail of numbers from Verizon. He then got a subsequent search warrant to Verizon that traced those numbers back to a number, which was the final piece of the evidence needed to crack the case. Now, going back to all this, if you don't know who it was, let's remember. So this started in October 2020. Some messages happened, they left. A year later, it gets turned up in September 2021. 5 months after that, they involve their parents. They involve the principals. January 2022, they get the sheriff involved. April 2022, they get the FBI involved. And then August 2022, they get a search warrant for the phone number. And I know if you didn't, like, don't lead it all up. But if you don't know what's going on, August 22, they got a search warrant for Kendra's phone and ended up getting a confession out of Kendra. So, wow, if you didn't know that. If you did know that, no new information, but if you were like me and you had no idea, and the way the Netflix documentary framed it is Kendra was front and center, talking about this as if she was not the one that did this. Up front about how the school wasn't doing anything, how super involved she was, all these little things, and it ended up being fucking her sending these absolute vile things to not only her daughter, her daughter's boyfriend, her daughter's and then ex-boyfriend's new mom, Owen's cousin. Like, this branched out so much. It is absolutely unreal. And the way the Netflix documentary had worked up to that point, I had no idea that it was the mom. The reactions, if you just go on TikTok and go this title of this movie and then initial reactions, you will see, and that is exactly how I felt. And if you hadn't watched it, hopefully you have the same reaction. If you did, hopefully this is just some new information maybe that you don't know and you were disgusted the whole time. But whoa, right? So what happens from there? So obviously Sheriff Mike Main has to then go to the house and tell Lauren that, hey, we got a search warrant for your mom's phone, and the FBI liaison is saying, hey, this is your mom. And a lot of people online were upset the way that the officer delivered it, said it wasn't very clear. And in this, so when they first went in, like, Kendra knew she was caught right away, and he was asking her, like, hey, what was this? Were you infatuated with him? Like, what's this? Like, he very much just, like, opened it right away, like, we got you, what's going on? And she was like, no, it's not that. And so he was, like, asking her a couple questions, again, watch the Netflix documentary, like, how did this happen? Was he bad to her? Whatever. And she was like, no, like, I'm just trying to, like, that's not it at all. And I wasn't the one to start the first ones. And, obviously a little bit more quiet. So then he's like, well, obviously we're going to have to tell Ken. She's like, well, I don't want that to happen. I don't want her to know it was me. And he's like, well, we have to tell Jill. Like, we have to, this is coming out one way or the other. So they go get Lauren, bring her in. Like I said, he was kind of, talking about your mom did bad things and we make bad choices and and, turns out, sounds like it's your mom that, he didn't really say it, but he did say it. And I understand a lot of people are upset about that, but I think he delivered it enough. And then he called Sean, the husband, to let him know that it was his wife for the last 2 years that had been tormenting everyone through these text messages. So then Sean comes and they're in the backyard talking. And then Sean also finds out that she had been lying about not working for the last year. And not only that, it sounds like she lied about how she lost her last job. So it sounds like she said that she quit and went for another job that was remote. This is what I'm gathering. And what actually happened is that she was fired. So we'll get into that. So he was very obviously upset about that, came in and was like, you gotta go. A lot of people are like, why weren't you confronting more? Like, obviously the daughter and the mom, or the daughter and the husband knew about it and all that. Like, why is he just focused on the job and the finances and all that? And it's like, when people are going through grief and they're finding out that someone has completely lied to them, sometimes you're just not thinking. And I think possibly because he had worked so hard, they had been evicted, like that put them also through a lot, and he just not been there and was probably so blown away that she'd just been lying for the last year, and that he was probably taking on a lot about this whole situation being his fault financially and trying to do that, like, and we only seen what we seen in the Netflix documentary. Like, maybe there was more, but he was basically like, get out. You don't deserve to be here, da 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 da. So it sounds like, her parents came and picked her up, and she was, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But some things I wanted to bring up. So that was like the end of the Netflix documentary or whatever, and then they talk about after. There's a couple more. But some things that people pointed outside of the documentary and thoughts on it, I wanted to kind of finish this episode, and I'm so glad that I decided to separate these because I knew this was going to be a longer episode. So a lot of people were upset with the reactions of Lauren saying, like, why isn't she more upset? She must have knew, da 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 da. And I think from what I'm understanding, what I'm reading outside, is it sounds like a month before the cops officially confirmed it. It sounds like online people are saying that she did know about it and she did think it was her mom, like was starting to be like, okay, maybe this is. So perhaps when that all went down, there wasn't that initial shock because it was kind of more just validation. Also, when you get shocking information in the moment, you don't know. And her mom's all over her, hugging her. Like, her mom also seemed like she created this relationship with her where she's very codependent on her. She wrapped herself in her life where she would answer text messages for her to Owen and all that kind of stuff, allegedly. So I feel like it was one of those things where, she kind of tortured her daughter in a way where her daughter would run home and need to, be consoled by her and protected by her. I think that was a big control thing for her personally. That's what I kind of just get. But keep in mind, she was 16 years old when her mom was arrested, right? Like, you're being tortured for days and days and days and days, and then months and like years, and all of a sudden that happens. Like, there's a good part of it you're just numb about it, and then she's crying because she's realizing that her family's being ripped apart. Like, and that's absolutely fair. It's absolutely fair to be 16 and have a complete abuser that has obviously abused you for years, and processing that and not fully understanding. Like, how many kids stick with their parents after abuse? It's really sad. But I don't think we need to be victim blaming or asking why she's like that. Are you fucking kidding me? So anyways, narcissistic parents do shit to their kids and make them super hyper dependent on them. And so I feel fully that that's what it is. Some people are saying it was like Munchausen by proxy and kind of an online thing, kind of like Gypsy Rose Blanchard's mom. But the only difference here, apparently, that I've been able to find out is that when you have Munchausen by proxy, you are outwardly trying to get attention and sympathy, where it doesn't sound like this is what happened. So that's why people are kind of hesitant to say that, that's fully it. It was stalking and abuse, and I think there's far more other things than that, than just this. And I don't think it's the same thing as Gypsy Rose Blanchard's mom. Call me crazy, but I think it's something different, a whole different level of fucked up. And other people are saying, like, how does her husband not know that she was working for a year? Well, it sounds like he had to work extended hours to try and cover their bills, and you don't know. Like, it sounds like she was a breadwinner because she was in IT, and she lost that job allegedly. So very easily could have been less money, and saying this new job doesn't make as much money, so he was going to work. She was, allegedly saying that it was remote work. So when he's going to work for those long hours and Lauren's going to school and she's working remote, like, it could be very easy to come up here and play on a computer and pretend you're working while they're there, and while they're gone, you're obviously doing something else during the day with your time, and you're on your phone all the time and all that kind of stuff. I think I'm not saying it's very easy, but when you've got your whole family distracted and mentally distraught, going through traumatic shit and trying to not lose their houses, like, and then it sounds like maybe she did some, like, a little bit of unethical things to cover for this stuff to make there a little bit of income, right? Like, someone said something about insurance fraud. I'm not claiming that. That is just something that I read online. And this is very common with relationships, is for one person to be taking care of the finances, and some people really don't know where their finances are. Go watch Financial Audit with Caleb Hammer, which everyone should watch, by the way, for many, many reasons. But when you go and watch that, you will see how much spouses lie to the other spouse about their finances, right? So maybe he just didn't know and she lied and he just is going to take his wife's word for it. Like, and if she actively told them that she was working, going to, like, why would you just assume your wife's going to lie? Right? Like, people say, oh, like, how didn't you know that until they're in the shoes? Right? It's not always easy. And people are saying too, like, how did Kendra know all this stuff about their kids? From what I've read online, after Lauren started dating Owen in the 7th grade, Kendra became really close to him, like a second mom, if you will. This led her to getting more involved on his side of the family, coaching his track team, which apparently she had no right doing a bunch of this stuff, like just didn't have experience in it. And so she was like literally everywhere. She was community involvement. She was involved in the sport. She was involved in the school. Also, these are just my thoughts, that for one, she was in IT. So who's to say that she didn't know how to redirect text messages because she had multiple phones? So who doesn't know that maybe she had an extra phone? I have a phone here and I have a phone there and I have my Mac right there. So I have different ways that I can connect to someone's phone and get through those things. I could probably hook up to social media. Hackers can hack into anything. And I'm not saying she did that, but to say, like, how did you get this information? Well, if she's unemployed all day and locked into her daughter's social media and accounts and seeing these messages and also being a part of it, grabbing her phone, messaging Owen herself. It's a small town and she's got no job and she's around all these schools. So I don't think it's crazy for her to know some of the gossip because some of the stuff was happening in the school. Well, if she's tapped in and people are talking about that, she's easily going to see that kind of stuff. People in the community said that her behavior was unsettling and it was kind of obsessive about her daughter. So did that transpire to Owen, or was it just about her obsession with her daughter and trying to make her popular, or like, what was it? I have no idea. And that leads me to the next question. Why did she do this and how did she pull it off? Well, the thing that I found interesting is that she allegedly quit her job at Ferris State in August 2021 after being placed on a performance improvement plan. The plan was reportedly a result of her spending excessive amount of time on her phone during work hours. The harassment started again in September 2021. So I think that she was already deep into this and like getting herself involved in this is just me, alleged thoughts, is like she was maybe already tapped into her daughter's life at that time. And in that, since that first random message, which she claimed she had nothing to do with, which I don't agree, I think that she got herself looped into this and that's how she got in trouble at work and they let her go. Maybe because she got this plan and she wasn't going to have it. And then she lied and said she started another job because September 2021, those text messages started all over again and she had lost her job and this probably pushed her over the edge. And she felt like she couldn't control anything, but she could control this. She can control these kids and do all of that. Now, she claims in the documentary that she was, and I'm not saying she did or did not, but she's saying the reason why she did this is because she was raped at 17. And as her daughter approached that age, she was very scared that the same thing would happen to her. So if she could control the narrative and control her and where she went and all she did, that wouldn't be the same fate as her. She also claimed, though, that she didn't do the very first text messages in October 2020, but had picked them back up in 2021. And she said that she did it initially to try and figure out who this person was. And if she could text back and get involved in it, then maybe they'd ask who she was and she could figure out who it was. I don't know, y'all. That seems like such a stretch, but that's what she claims. And then she said at first, it wasn't meant to be like this, but it just snowballed. And her excuse was, everybody does crime, just like drunk drivers and all that kind of stuff. But, once everyone does crime, but, once you get caught, then you're just like me. Kendra, I'm really sorry. I really hate to bring this to you, and chances are you're never going to see this, but no, most people don't commit crimes. There's millions of people in the world, and I assure you that maybe we're sinners. Maybe we haven't done stuff the best, and we're talking when we have crimes, it's like maybe not putting our seatbelts on, or maybe accidentally running a red light, or maybe playing on our phone for 2 seconds. But you bullied and harassed your daughter and people around her and made many people take the fall for your disgusting behavior. That is not the same thing. It is not the same thing as people getting in the car after 1 or 2 drinks, albeit not the best practice. Not the same thing. You sexually harassed your own daughter. You told her to kill herself. You got everyone around her and saying that she trying to get them to say the same things to her. You made her believe that she was disgusting, anorexic. Everything you hated about yourself, you tried to put on your daughter and have her spur those insecurities and anxiety. That is not the same thing, and I need you to be aware of that. If this woman came out after and all of this and said, I'm really fucked up, I don't know what's wrong with me, I'm going to continue working until I figure it out, I think I would have had a little bit more grace. But the fact that it was like, well, I was traumatized as a child, therefore I'm traumatizing my daughter. No excuse. As a parent, fix that shit. Get it figured out. Don't deflect that stuff. You had ample opportunity. And I'm not saying your marriage was good, and I'm not saying things were good, but as a mother, it was your job to protect your daughter, not harass it. And on top of that, the disgusting things that you did to someone else's son and the things that you said are absolutely vile at that age. I do not stand for this. I do not stand for predators. This is absolutely disgusting. You're no fucking better than any other pedophile out there, in my opinion. I am sorry. Point blank period. You're almost worse because you did this for your daughter, and you're trying to deflect and use your personal trauma for that. So trauma for your innocent daughter and her innocent boyfriend, which you never know. They could have had a beautiful relationship for the rest of their lives, but they'll never know because you ruined that for them. I'm sorry. No. You don't get away with that. So did she go to jail? Kendra was charged with 2 counts of stalking a minor, 2 counts of communicating with another to commit a crime, and 1 count of obstruction of justice. She pled guilty to 2 counts of stalking a minor in March 2023, and other charges were dismissed. She was released on parole in 2024. The documentary shows that Kendra suffers from predispositions, that she was a sort of cyber Munchausen by proxy, also called fictitious disorder imposed on another, and a complex mental health disorder, which is when a caregiver fabricates the appearance of health issues, often obviously for attention, sympathy, or pathological desire to deceive. Although rare, the disorder has become widely known from high case profiles like Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Go watch the analyst by Dr. Grande. I think he does a good job of saying, like, yeah, maybe, but not quite, because they were doing for different things. It wasn't for like internet fame or money or all of that. Like, this had some like very narcissistic, I'm not saying he said this, I'm saying this, that there seemed to be very narcissistic tendency there. And again, I don't think it's fair to say, oh, she's got mental health problems, so therefore this was okay. Absolutely, it's not. But some other things that people had concerned online was when she got arrested, the amount of booze that was on the back, on the table. And hey, maybe they were cleaning up and they'd been there for a couple months, but y'all, that looked like when I moved out when I was 20 years old and I was having parties at my house after a 3-month like binge. So that was concerning. Wonder if that was a part of this decline, and what kept her in that space is just drinking all the time. The people were concerned that there was a lack of coverage of how much Kendra was in love with Owen and how obsessed he was. Jill was very much concerned and very much spoke about that and said that that was disgusting and how disturbed she was, especially with how close she was as a friend. Although Kendra denies that that was the case. I mean, girl, hard to believe you. And apparently, like I said before, unlike the dramatic reveal in the documentary, some school staff suspected Kendra earlier. The principal found her having 2 phones was really suspicious, and the secretary had expressed her suspicions, saying that she felt the messages could not be from a student. The FBI confirmed that Kendra had also actively been impersonating Chloe on Snapchat to make it appear as though Chloe was sending these messages anonymously. Lauren also began suspecting her mother, even though the documentary shows Lauren's shock. A former teammate stated that Lauren had started to suspect her mother the month before police confirmed it. Despite a ban on contacting victims, Kendra and Lauren communicated via email when Kendra was in prison, though they have not met in person since. And that's another thing that people are saying. It's like, how could she still love her mom? Because they clipped at the very end when she was very, very young, when this just all happened, and her mom was, this originally happened, saying, like, she's my mom. Of course she's gonna, I love her and I want to talk to her and I want to, be a part of her life. And then it fast forwards to when she was released and she's kind of like, you know what? I think I need some time before I have this relationship, and they have not talked. Kendra is out. She's living with her parents in the Detroit area. And as far as this conversation and this situation, it sounds like Lauren and her dad have gotten very, very close. Dad has full-time custody. He's trying to rebuild from everything. They spend a lot of time together and they do hunting and all that. It sounds like Owen is, doing his own thing. I think he's now in maybe college for football, it sounds like, and Jill just and her husband just focusing on rebuilding their life after this and moving on. They do not talk. They do not have anything to do with each other anymore, but they're just trying to move on from this very crazy documentary. Like I said, I've obviously, spoiler alert, all of this, but if you watched through, you knew that was coming. But I do think you should watch it, because I obviously cannot cover as much as this as I possibly wanted to in 15 minutes, but I wanted to bring some things that I had found on the internet that was a little bit different than the documentary. And, as you guys know, I love talking about this random shit. I also wanted to point out just before I go, if you see my shirt, look at here, Be Real shirt. I'm so excited, you guys, that we're going to have more merch like this. Make sure to follow me at the Be Real Collective as well, with a bunch of girlies that are just putting positive shit out there to combat me talking about Canadian news that's depressing and internet insanity with a bunch of crazies. And then the podcast we got every Friday. So Mondays Keeping Up with Canada on YouTube. Wednesdays, Internet Insanity on YouTube. Fridays, we've got the Be Real Babe podcast with amazing guests every Friday on Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. If you're looking to find me on social media, you can find me at the Be Real Babe on Instagram or TikTok. And thank you guys for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave your comments below of what you think about this situation. I'm sure I missed a ton of shit and maybe got things wrong. There was so much, you guys. I tried my best. But next week, I have yet another interesting, very long story that I'm going to have to break down about another person that's on Kendra that is named Kendra that is trending. But thank you guys again so much for listening. And until the next time, bye.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time, bye.